You're watching Capital City Sunday.
Here now to break down the past year in state politics and to look ahead at a crucial election year in Wisconsin is Scott Bauer with the Associated Press. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so let's start with the state Supreme Court's decision to overturn those legislative maps. So signs are pointing towards a likely Republican appeal here. So how will we see that process play out as we get into 2024?
Sure. So the Supreme Court ruled on December 23rd and put in some pretty tight deadlines for people to submit maps for them to consider potentially early in 2024. So there's some deadlines coming up in a couple weeks. And then there's a final deadline in mid-February where the court basically said, look, legislature, if you can't pass a map that the governor will sign, we're going to take maps from everyone. We're going to hire a couple experts and we're going to basically create our own map to have in place in time for the Wisconsin Elections Commission deadline, which is March 15th, to have these new districts drawn. So early in the year, you're going to see a lot of activity in the court, potentially in the legislature, but more likely in the court, with some new boundaries being drawn and lawmakers finding out probably sometime around March about where, if they have a district anymore, or what it looks like, or if they're running against one of their colleagues, or what exactly is going to be the lay of the land for the 2024 election.
With Wisconsin being a focal point in 2024, there's no question about it. It's a battleground state. Now, this ruling doesn't give anyone a lot of time to prepare. I think a key word of what you have said is time. We've got lawmakers, candidates, clerks, voters are going to be dealing with the fallout from this, either through that appeals process or as these maps are being drawn on these tight deadlines. How is this ruling affecting the elections process in early 2024, even the primaries in August?
Yeah, I think everyone, a lot of people kind of assumed we would get to this place. They thought the court would do what they did. The big unknown is obviously what are the boundary lines actually going to be. So people have been working kind of behind the scenes and recruiting candidates and kind of being ready for a variety of different scenarios. But until they know exactly who's running where, that can't be finalized, right? So I think what you're going to see is when those maps come out, there's going to be pretty quick activity to recruit candidates and get them, figure out who's going to run where. The one thing we didn't talk about in the ruling, Democrats had wanted everyone in the state Senate to be up, but the Supreme Court said no, folks who were elected in 2022, they can serve out their term and then they'll be up in 2026. So instead of having the entire Senate be on the ballot this fall, which would have been unprecedented, we'll still have roughly half on the ballot, and of course all of the assembly. So Democrats, in their best hopes, I think they're thinking we can pick up a few seats here depending on what the maps look like. It's probably unrealistic for them to think that they can take the majority. However, if the boundary lines are drawn heavily in their favor and it's a strong Democratic turnout, presidential year, Tammy Baldwin's on the ballot, Democrats could do perhaps overperform, and I think that would be the worst case scenario for Republicans, would be new maps that are greatly more in favor of Democrats and a strong Democratic turnout.
A flurry of activity already before we've even kicked off the year. Let's move on. There's probably another tax plan coming from Republicans in the new year. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos has revealed some details of that plan. Based on that, are we facing another Governor Evers veto? Is there a Democrat-Republican showdown on this? It doesn't sound like a sure thing.
Yeah, we couldn't get it to agreement last year, or this year, 2023, whatever year we're in, here on the border. On a tax cut plan, the governor vetoed what was in the budget largely. Republicans have tried to get closer to a flat tax on the income tax. Governor has not been on board with that. Speaker Vos unveiled this new idea that was kind of a hybrid or a portion of what they've done before of not taxing retirement income. And so, it's unclear whether the governor will go for that. It'll certainly be something that Republicans talk about and probably pass in 2024. The governor has been pretty clear that he wants tax cuts that are, directed toward the middle class. So we'll see if they can reach agreement on that. It's been one where they haven't been able to do that in the recent past.
What about some of the other proposals Robin Vos has put forward? Medical marijuana, an abortion referendum. Do these have any hope of going anywhere?
Yeah, so he's talked a lot about this medical marijuana bill, which no one has seen. He talked about it last year. It didn't come out in the fall as he said it would. He talked about it again over the holidays and said it's coming in January. No one has seen the bill yet. whatever it is, it sounds like it'll be very limited. The governor and a lot of Democrats are in favor of full legalization. So whether they're willing to accept whatever this proposal is, which no one has seen, is kind of a step forward, remains to be seen. It seems like there would probably be some opposition to that. It sounds like it's going to be a very limited, restricted program. However, in politics and in that building, sometimes things happen incrementally. So maybe that will have a chance. The other one that is almost certainly to be vetoed is the Speaker Voss talked about wanting to put a binding referendum on the ballot for voters to enact a law on how long before an abortion would be illegal. How many weeks into pregnancy. And what he had talked about is a proposal that would be more restrictive than what was in place prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned. The governor's been very clear that he won't settle for anything that's less restrictive than what was in place before then. And of course, at the same time, we have this lawsuit going forward, challenging what people thought was a state ban on abortion. That's likely to get to the state Supreme Court maybe this year, likely this year. So Democrats seem content to have that play out in the courts, and it seems unlikely, highly unlikely, that the governor would sign anything that would put a ballot question on the ballot related to abortion.
Well, Scott, let's end with this. This past week, Herb Kohl passed away. He was an incredibly influential figure in Wisconsin and nationwide with his place in the Senate. What is his legacy?
Yeah, I mean, he had an incredible life in public, serving in the U.S. Senate, really serving as a senator who was not highly partisan. He was a Democrat, but his slogan was "No one's senator but yours." He ran with his own money. He obviously is known for Kohl's department stores. He's also known as a former owner of the Bucks. His name is on the Kohl Center here in Madison. His influence transcended politics. Really, that was probably one of the things he's less known for, was being in the U.S. Senate, and more for these other things he did in his private life and his philanthropy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what he contributed to Wisconsin. A long life, in some ways heralding back to a different time of a less partisan, or at least he was a less partisan type individual, and had a lot of bipartisan supporters. So a life well lived, and he'll definitely be missed.
Well, Scott, thanks so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you.
Herb Kohl's life was one that was truly well-lived. He loved Milwaukee and he loved Wisconsin and gave back to the state wherever and whenever he could. He bought the Bucks to keep them from leaving town, served as a U.S. Senator for more than 2 decades, founded the Kohl's department store chains, and used his own personal fortune on civic and educational causes throughout the state. The Democrat cut an unusual figure in the U.S. Senate. He was quiet but effective on home state issues, particularly dairy policy. Democrats and Republicans agree his loss is keenly felt. Well, that's it for this edition of Capital City Sunday this week. As always, you can email me at smasslordonar@wkow.com if you have any questions or interview suggestions for the show. But that's all for now. A happy new year to you. And we'll send you out this morning with a look at flags flying half-staff in Madison in honor of Herb Kohl. Thanks for joining us, and be well.